mountains here don't look rich. They look stubborn, sun-bleached ridges, thorny slopes, roads that vanish into heat shimmer, villages clinging to stone like they were placed there by necessity. But wealth doesn't always announce itself on the surface. Sometimes it arrives as a file. A March 2024 geological survey proposal, circulating online before most people in the region saw any official notice, showing Sanaag reduced to blocks, coordinates, and codes. And inside that proposal, a name appears: Euromark Group for Development Company, LLC. No press conference, no tender remembered, no debate recorded, until the leak forces one. Because what the document describes is not small. It outlines mineral exploration concessions spanning more than 1,000 square kilometers of Sanaag, listing gold, copper, tin, lithium, platinum, tantalum, titanium, even uranium. Then comes the number that changes how the audience hears everything else. Puntland estimates referenced in the document cite reserves of up to 567 tons of gold in the region, an amount carrying a market value of roughly $70 billion US. 70 billion. A figure like that just doesn't attract investors, it attracts power. And in Sanaag, power does not travel cleanly. So the first question isn't whether there's mineral potential. The first question is procedural. How does concession of this scale enter public life through a leak rather than a transparent process? The geography makes it worse. The proposal's concession footprint reaches into a landscape already marked by political tension, and it includes Majayahan, a town remembered as a flashpoint tied to earlier violence. In places like this, resource decisions don't stay technical, they become communal, then armed, then permanent. So when Euromark document circulates, the reaction online is immediate: outrage over the company's motives and background, claims spread that it's linked to an Emirati interest, and that politicians were paid to grant the concession. Those claims were not proven. The company strongly denied making any payments. But the public anger itself tells you something structural. When citizens expect secrecy, every concession becomes suspect by default, and suspicion is combustible fuel in a region with a memory of resource conflict. So the investigation turns away from the mood and toward what can be checked. The report traces Euromark's corporate spine. It confirms the Euromark Group for Development in Somalia is linked to a parent firm registered in the UAE, Euromark General Trading LLC, based in Dubai. The Dubai entity markets itself publicly as a supplier of metal detecting equipment, consistent with imagery of its physical storefront. A corporate intelligence profile identified one of Euromark General Trading's owners as Sudanese national residing in Dubai. When contacted, the owner acknowledged affiliation with the Somali vehicle and confirmed the company was engaged in exploration activity around Milxo. So the story shifts from rumor to structure. A Dubai-linked corporate entity is connected to a vast concession in Sanaag. Now the question tightens. If a $70 billion mineral narrative is being built here, who is responsible for making its terms visible? Then the report goes to the ground. Investigators identify an individual based in Milxo responsible for Euromark's operations. When reached, he did not introduce himself with one role. He described himself simultaneously as a businessman, Euromark representative in Somalia, and Puntland's government employee. He claimed to be the head of a mining department in the region, within Puntland's Ministry of Energy, Minerals, and Water. That single claim is not a detail. It is a governance alarm. Because if the same person can operate inside a private concession while presenting himself as the public mining authority, regulation stops being a system. It becomes a costume. So investigators did the simplest verification possible. They asked the ministry to confirm his employment. The ministry did not respond. Not a denial, not a confirmation, silence. And silence is not a neutral controversy of this size. Silence is room for power to operate without explanation. So the question becomes unavoidable. If public institutions won't even confirm who holds authority at the site, what does regulation actually mean here? I'll zoom out again. Because this is where incompetence becomes visible. The report describes Puntland's extractive governance as lacking formal legislative and regulatory framework. Investigators checked the Ministry of Energy, Mineral and Water's own website and found its pages labeled legislation, policies, and regulations were entirely blank. An attempt to pass mining bills have not succeeded. This detail matters because it's not interpretive, it is concrete. When citizens look for the rulebook is not there. So when a concession appears, the public is not just asking who signed it, they're asking, what law is it standing on? Then comes the licensing puzzle, the place where a functioning state should speak clearly. The report states that Euromark, like most mining companies in Puntland, is apparently operating without a federal license. Puntland's Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Investment says no company by that name is registered with it, and no export license has been issued in that name. Despite Commerce being the body mandated under Puntland law to regulate business operations and approve foreign investment, Euromark disputes the relevance of Commerce registration, stating it has no dealings with Commerce and is licensed by the Mining Ministry instead, while acknowledging its license was due for renewal. The Mining Ministry did not clarify whether Euromark had a valid mining license, so the public receives a contradiction, not an answer. Federal officials, no federal license. Commerce, not registered, no export license. Company license through Mining Ministry renewal due. Mining Ministry, no clarification. This is what institutional fragmentation looks like in practice, not chaos. A structure where each body can point elsewhere and no one closes the loop in public. So now the question is no longer about company, it's about accountability. Who, in writing, is responsible for authorizing Euromark's activities? Under what legal framework? Today, not later. The report's warning is explicit. It says the Euromark concession mirrors Puntland's past practice of allocating natural resources to foreign entities through non-transparent process, and in the absence of effective regulatory oversight. And in a region where resource disputes have previously erupted into violence, such arrangements risk aggravating intercommunal tensions again. This is not prophecy, it is pattern recognition, because when legitimacy is missing at the start, enforcement becomes political, and when enforcement becomes political, the ground becomes contested, whether or not anyone intended it. So Euromark is not only a corporate story, it is a governance story, a test of whether Puntland's institutions can separate public authority from private access, publish the rules, verify who holds office, and clarify licensing in daylight before the next crisis is drawn into existence. And the final question is simple. If this concession is legitimate, why does everything around it, its arrival, its licensing, its on-site authority, remain so difficult to confirm publicly?